Hello, I'm Mary Davidson, and we're back. And you remember, it's our community. So we invite these wonderful people in that live in our community and are part of our everyday life. Today, an old friend, and his name is Vern Otte. And Vern is a doctor of veterinary medicine, and he has been, what, 35 years, Vern, isn't it?
Right, yes.
With the State Line Animal Hospital. But Vern does a lot of other things, and one of those things that we're going to talk about today is the fact that he is a volunteer veterinarian in the Iditarod race in Alaska.
Right.
And I think they referred to that race, as I recall, as the last great race on Earth.
That's correct.
And it probably is,
It
isn't
probably is, yes. It really is. It's quite a race.
It's raw, if you really want to know. But I think the beautiful scenery is a great draw. And in one of the articles I read, the Inuit Indians call the northern lights, which you see, the souls of children waiting to be born. Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful.
I think that's beautiful. And I know you go because you like animals, and because you like the scenery, and because it is the last great race on Earth. And
Yes.
it's a challenge.
It's
cold.
It's a real challenge, and it is cold.
Whoa, boy. I couldn't believe that that race is 1,150 miles. You have to mush the dogs. I'd be out of there within 2 blocks. It's so cold. 10 to 17 days, Vern?
10 to 17 days. This year they did it in 9 days, but that's unusual.
Why could they do it in so many fewer days?
The guy who won this year, instead of taking a couple stops, he went right on through and pushed it really hard.
Pushed the dogs too, huh?
Pushed the dogs, but they did well.
Did they? Let's talk about the fact, when I said push the dogs, I think perhaps they're sort of like racehorses. Racehorses are bred to run, and so are these dogs, are they not?
That's right.
So what are we looking for? I mean, we have a guest here.
We have a guest.
We have a
Maxine.
guest. We have Maxine, but I think Maxine has to be a reject. She is not ready to run 1,100 miles. I don't think so. But Maxine is the type of dog that would be a good candidate for a sled dog. Why?
Well, she has a nice double coat. She has lots of insulation in there.
And pull up her. See there? Yeah.
Yeah. So she has a good double coat. She has nice feet.
And when you say nice feet, broad, big feet?
They have some webbing, but they're broad feet. Yes.
And but she's too fat.
She's too big. She's
Yes.
too big. Most of the sled dogs weigh 45 pounds, 40, 45. Some of the husky dogs will be up in the 50, 60 pounds. 60 is really a heavy dog, though.
And that's not so
They're
good.
not going to win a race with 60-pound
No, they're
dog.
too heavy.
Right.
Are there people who breed sled dogs?
Most of the mushers do.
They do.
Most of the mushers have their own dogs that they've raised.
And when the puppies come, how do they know that they're going to be good or not?
You know, they raise them, they race them, they run them, they
And then
exercise
they can
them, they
tell.
play with them.
And they can tell.
Yeah.
Because I've been to Alaska, and I've seen these sled dogs, and they're not gorgeous.
No.
These are beautiful.
Maxine looks great.
These are beautiful.
Those are beautiful dogs. Yes.
But they don't, most of them look like that. They look like escapees from the pound, for
Right.
the most part.
The dogs that look like that finish the race well, and they look great when they finish it, but they're at the end of the pack.
They don't win.
They don't win.
Gorgeous is not always good.
Gorgeous is not going to win you the race. Most of the dogs look like dogs that come out of the pound,
Yeah.
which, by the way, Maxine did, but she's not
Maxine
one
is used to the good life already.
Oh, that's right.
But she is. See, her feet are just. She has big pads on the bottoms of her feet,
Yeah.
and that's really important because that's rough going.
Right. But they wear booties.
Having said that,
I brought them prop along.
I brought a pup, and these booties are made of what?
Yeah, some kind of a soft material.
But they have to be waterproof, don't they? No?
No, because the snow is so cold that they don't have to worry about
It's
it.
not wet.
Yeah. And they have different types of booties. Some of them are much heavier, depending on the snow. So you have orange ones, you have the black ones, which you use most of the time. They have some blue ones that resist snow catching on them. So they trade off booties depending on what they do. And the booties only last them a day.
I was going to say, I read someplace that for the Iditarod race, the mushers have to have huge number of booties made already, and they change those booties. They wear them out.
16 dogs, 4 feet, and they're changing them probably 3 times a day.
3 times a day, because they wear straight through them.
Right.
And they have usually Velcro on them.
Little Velcro on
hold them.
there.
The other thing that I think is kind of interesting is the harness that they wear. And I think that it's interesting because it has to be constructed so that it's sturdy, but it doesn't choke them.
Right.
You know, sometimes when the dog pulls on the harness, they have a little cough because it kind of chokes them.
But there's no pressure on their neck on the harnesses that they wear.
Yeah.
And depending on the conformation of the dog, they will have different types of harnesses. Some of them come back, they're an H-type harness, they'll come straight back across. Some of them have the X like this, and some of them are modified in between.
Does it have anything to do with the musher's preference for
No,
harnesses?
it's the way the dog is shaped. And so
really?
whatever fits the dog best.
Oh, I see. So it needs to fit down close.
To fit the dog, yes.
Well, you know, the other thing that I was thinking about was these booties keep the snow from packing in between their paws.
And that's one of the main reasons to have it, so it doesn't pack in there. Because you get snow packed in there, it's really tough on them.
Oh, well.
Then they start limping.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
They start limping, we take them out.
Oh, that is hard going, I gotta say. They run, and I thought this was kind of interesting too. A good team can run about 8 miles an hour?
Yes, easily 8 miles an hour.
No wonder it takes 10 days.
The Alaskan sled dog is the fastest animal in the world once you get past 10 miles. They can run 18 miles an hour straight for 25 miles.
Whew.
Yeah.
So the 8 miles is kind of an average.
That's when they're running a marathon type thing. But if they run a short race of 25 miles, they'll run at 18 miles an hour. But on a long race where they're running 110, 120, 30 miles a day, they'll average 8 miles an hour.
Boy.
Just a nice, easy trot for them.
You know, it's got to be hard on the musher, too. You got to stand. You can't sit down.
I feel it. I mean, I watch these mushers come in and go, ooh, I'm glad it's not me.
They look as rangy as the dogs, I think.
Oh, yeah. One of them slept in my sleeping bag one day, and it was like I never want to get touched close to that again. But yeah, they're standing there for 8 hours straight in that cold, and they're not, it's not like they're moving and circulating like the dogs are. Dogs.
Well, and they have to concentrate because it's easy to get off the trail and get lost.
Right, and I've known a couple of mushers who did get off the trail and got lost, and one of them was actually ended up winning the race, but he was ahead, and he came in and said that he had gone off in the wrong place, woke up, he went to sleep.
Went to sleep, standing up yet.
Woke up and said, I don't recognize, I'm not sure I'm in the right place, and said I went another 15 miles, and finally I turned the dogs around and came back, and he said, then I had to take an 8-hour break because the dogs didn't trust me anymore.
They know, don't they?
Yeah, no, they know.
Well, dogs are smart. They try to keep them on the trail with markers.
Right. And that's the type of marker they'll use.
And this is broken off. They're
that one's
tall
broken
ones.
off. It'll be, I think they're 5-foot pieces of lathe. And that's a reflective strip on there, the yellow.
The yellow.
Yeah. And so at nighttime, the dogs, some of the dogs will have lights on, but the mushers will have headlights, and those will reflect off of that so they can pick that up. In the daytime, obviously, the bright colors and the blue, the dogs know where they know to follow those sticks. But occasionally, the sticks will get blown over in a blizzard, and then it's kind of tough.
No kidding. Time to go home, then.
Yes. Yeah, the first year I was out, a lady left one checkpoint where I was, and a day and a half later, she was finally found.
She's lucky they found her at all.
Yeah.
But then I have to say to you, Vern, we've been friends a long time, and I always thought you were a pretty level guy. But why? I mean, this is 30, 40 below zero.
Right.
And you're a volunteer. Why would you go to freeze yourself solid?
Well, it's great working with these dogs. I mean, it really is. And the mushers are for the most part very, very good to work with. They get tired at the end, and they're not quite as good as they are at the beginning.
A little cranky.
They get a little cranky. But and the other volunteers are wonderful to work with, and it's just a great experience. And the scenery in Alaska in March is great.
Mm-hmm. How did you this past in '09 was your fourth time, was it?
In '10 was my fourth time.
10 was the fourth time.
Yeah.
How did you hear about it?
Well, I've watched the race for years, and so, but when I retired from the Army Reserves, and I've been doing lots of medical missions and going places and doing fun things, I needed something to do. This was great.
Well, I remember, I need to tell these people that you and I were in Rotary together, and that's how we met, but I remember, and you went to Desert Storm as a veterinarian.
Correct.
And so you were gone for a year. You got
yeah.
re-upped. That's
yeah.
right. Let's talk about the dogs for a minute. Let's go. Maxine is having her siesta here, but Maxine's too big. Maxine weighs what, 50,
probably
60
pounds?
75. 70 pounds. But most of these dogs,
they're going to weigh 40 to 45 pounds.
See, they got to be lean and mean.
Yeah, the marathoners are going to weigh that.
Speaking of that, are they mean?
Oh no, no. Rarely do you find a dog that's not nice. We had one team that the vets will contact the next vet team up along the truck points and say, watch out for this dog or watch out for that. And rarely does that happen. We had one team that's always been that way, and we always watch out for this one musher and his dogs.
Because he raises dogs that tend to be
and the bad part is he doesn't think they are. That's the bad part.
That's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. Well, they weigh 40 to 45 pounds. Now, that's not too big a dog.
No, that's a small dog.
Therefore, what they eat just blows my mind. And during the race, they consume about 10,000 calories a day.
That's correct.
Boy, I'd weigh 750 pounds at least.
Yeah.
They eat 3 pounds of beef fat or pork or meat or pork fat or lamb sausage for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, they eat dry dog food too, don't they?
Correct.
That's a lot of food for a little boy there.
It is. It's a lot of food. I mean, but you need a lot of calories. And so the things you have, talking about the fat, fat has a lot more calories and proteins than carbohydrates, so it adds on more calories because they're burning them up.
But it's just getting that amount of food down first thing in the morning is a little daunting. But so they're hungry first thing in the morning. They and it's heavy stuff. It's like you and me having for breakfast eggs and sausage and toast and more eggs and sausage. I mean, we just couldn't get it all in.
Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
A lot of food.
Yeah.
So they have to carry all that food with them.
They carry a day's worth. So one day of food is required to be on the sled at any one time. And then there are 20-some checkpoints along the way, and the food is distributed ahead of time at these checkpoints.
Do they bring their own food, or do they?
They bring their own food.
Okay, so each team has a bin with food in it, or a box or something.
Yeah, they have a bag. They send out bags, and so they may have all food in one bag, and it may have extra clothing or more booties in another bag, or it depends on how they have it mixed up. But they pack their own bags. They take it to a point anchored in Wasilla at the headquarters, and then the Iditarod Air Force takes it out for them, or they ship it with Postal Express. So it's all pre-positioned, and then one of the things we do when we get to a checkpoint is then they're just big piles of the stuff. Usually they're covered with snow.
How many vets are at each checkpoint?
Depends on where we are. The early checkpoints will have 6, 7, 8. The latter ones will have 2 or 3 or maybe 1, because early on there are lots of vets or lots of dogs coming through, and we need lots of people.
Lots of people.
And at the end, they may be 3 hours apart, maybe 6 hours apart. So there's lots of free time at that point. So it doesn't take one person.
Everybody's getting kind of cranky toward the end.
Everybody can, one person can take care of it at that point.
Yeah. it's not easy on the mushers, it's not easy on the vets, but it's not easy on the dogs. So the veterinarians are there to be certain that the dogs are okay, well cared for.
That's right.
What do you, when you check them every time they come through a checkpoint, so you have, what, 9, 10 dogs in a team, or are there 16?
16. 16. They start with 16.
Okay,
By the
but
time
they don't always
finish,
end up with 16.
They end up with maybe 10.
Don't they have to have 10?
They have to have 9, or
No.
excuse me, 6 to finish it.
They have to have 6. Well,
But no one finishes with 6.
oh, I'm sure, no, I wouldn't think so.
No.
That's losing a lot of dogs.
Right.
When you see the dog, they come through, the whole group of them comes through the checkpoint. What's the first thing you do when you hear all these yipping dogs coming through?
I'm watching the dogs. I'm watching them come through, and I'm watching their gait and seeing what they're doing. See if anybody's off gait. You know, there's somebody's, instead of being even, they're just kind of limping along. That's my best point to pick up, that there's something going on. Then I'm looking at the breathing. Are they breathing heavy? Are they?
And you can tell because the frost is,
Oh,
you
yeah,
can see it.
frost is up. But you can get a good idea of what's going on at that point. And once they stop, because when they come to a checkpoint, then they got to stop and get checked in. And then if these dogs don't calm down breathing-wise, then it gives us an idea they have pneumonia.
Oh. If they have pneumonia, now if you think they're not, and you're the final arbiter of this whole thing.
Right.
If you think they have pneumonia, what do you do? Take them out of the harness?
Actually, we don't take them out. We tell the musher to take them out.
Okay, so they're removed from the harness. But the dogs run in twos. What happens then with that empty spot?
Sometimes they'll just run by themselves. I mean, they'll be 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2.
They can do that.
They can do that. And then if they've lost 2 dogs, they'll move them around and move the dogs up next somebody around.
If you get a sick dog with pneumonia, and you keep that dog.
Correct.
Do you have a pen, or do you treat the dog there, or does somebody come pick up the dog? What happens?
We have an area that we have designated for the drop dogs, and so we go out and fix up a spot for them. We have straw that we put down for them, bed them down. If they're really bad, then we'll bring them into a tent or a building and maybe give them fluids. But as soon as we can, we get them back outside, because the dogs are not used to being inside. They don't want to be inside. It's too hot for them.
Isn't that funny?
So
Maxine's adjusted nicely.
Yeah, and then then we coat them red, white, or blue, depending on how bad they are. If it's a red dog, they will divert a plane and come in and pick it up. If it's a blue dog, the next chance there is that they'll get it. And a white dog, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just doesn't like to run.
Yeah.
It's tired. It's like, so those will go out. But they send in planes and pick up the dogs.
Is pneumonia a common disease just in your practice at home?
No.
No.
I rarely see it.
So it's something that happens to them.
Yeah, most of the time on the trail, pneumonia occurs because they've inhaled food.
They've aspirated.
Oh. It's an aspiration pneumonia.
Oh, well, see, I didn't know that. That's why I like to do this, Vern. I learn something new all the time. Part of the it's tough to get ready to run dogs in the race, and the training of that dog is really important. How do you you got these little puppies? All they want to do is play. How do you begin to train these dogs? They like to run, I guess.
Oh yeah, and some of the pictures I've seen of some of the places where they have a great big, looks like a big Ferris wheel type thing, but they get inside and they just run, and no one's making them run. They just get in there and start running because it's fun to do, and so that's part of it. And then they have small races, short races.
How do you teach them to run in the harness as a team? That to me would seem a little difficult.
Yeah, and I've not been involved with that, so I don't know.
Well, I'm sure it's just like a horse. You have to break them to
train them,
be in the harness.
And pick out somebody who knows what they're doing and put them next to that, and get this dog to run that way. And
I mean, it takes a lot of know-how. You can't wake up one morning and decide you're going to be a musher.
No.
So, you got to know what you're doing, and you have to know when to run them and when to rest them and when to give them a break. How do they manage that?
Well, part of the qualifications for this race are that they run preliminary races. And so they have to run at least 2 300-mile races.
To qualify?
To qualify.
Well, it's like a golf match. You have
Yeah.
to, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we do not want someone out there who would be like me.
Or me. I wouldn't be there in the first place.
And go, ooh, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to be this cold. So they have to have the preliminary races, and there's a number of races that they do, and I don't remember exactly what all, but they have to do at least 2 300-mile races, and maybe more than that. But there's some other races they have to do.
And so
too.
there are watchers along the route?
And the veterinarians for those races and the race judge have to give them a report card saying that they've done so and so, how well they've done before, even though they may finish. If they didn't do well, if they didn't handle the dogs well, didn't take care of them right, they may not.
They can't go.
They can't go.
And see, that's only fair. But I know during the race they're required to give them every so often a break and every so often a rest, aren't they? They can't just run them till they drop
Right.
over.
So most of the time, on just a routine day, they will run 6 to 8 hours and rest 6 to 8 hours and run 6 to 8 hours and rest 6 to 8 hours. That's the normal routine that they go. And it takes a musher approximately an hour and a half to get a team in and bed it down, take the booties off, feed it, to get it all ready, and then he takes a little rest, and then he does that all again before he leaves.
And then they're all covered with snow and frost.
all
To me,
covered
that
with
is not
snow.
my idea of resting.
Yeah. And then they pack up and go again. At 3 checkpoints along the way, they have to take specified breaks. An 8-hour break is in White Mountain, which is 77 miles from finish line. Everybody has to stop there. There's another 8-hour break anywhere along the Yukon River. And there are 4 stops along the Yukon River. They can stop at any one of those 4. And then there's a 24-hour rest someplace, anywhere they want. And at that point's where they make the catch-up from the difference between the 2-minute starting time. So everybody
see.
starts
I
2
see.
minutes apart.
I see. And you know, as they go along, I think that we all notice that it's really dangerous not to have these markers, because you get lost, and I would think you can't even tell what direction you're going because the sun is not always visible. Well, and
That's
even
right,
at that,
because they're
I
running
think
at night
Yeah.
too. They're doing that. So it's and they can have compass, but they can't have GPS.
But there is a GPS on their sled.
There's a GPS on the sled, but it does not guide them at all.
It only tells you where they are.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really nice when, like this lady 4 years ago, who got off the trail and we couldn't find her for a day and a half. It would have been nice to. Here she is.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's comforting for them to know that as
So
well.
if anybody wants to watch it on television, or actually on their computer, you can get on and you can watch these mushers with their GPS, and you can see how fast they're going, where they are, what the temperature is out there. So
Sometimes you don't want to know what the temperature is. One of the problems that these dogs have, besides being lame, getting lame occasionally, is diarrhea. Why is that a problem?
it's all the food they're eating. It's being pushed on them. You know, when they're at home, they're not eating that kind of food or that much, and so it takes a while to build up to doing that, and then they're eating and running, and so they end up with diarrhea.
Do you, when you see a dog, will the musher tell you there's a problem?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
what do you do? Give them Lamodal? I mean, what do you do?
And yeah, Lamodal is one of them we use. We use that for the really bad ones, but we use antibiotics, and we use some GI protectants, and so that's. I mean, the musher's very good about coming in and saying, these 3 are having diarrhea.
Well,
I've been having diarrhea going through it. I've been doing this and this. And
See, I would think so, because these dogs are very important to them.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's not going to finish it.
Well, what is a good sled dog worth financially? Do you know?
They're worth several $1,000s.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Because they're not pretty. I gotta
no.
say it
Oh,
again.
no.
They
No.
are not pretty.
No.
I mean, Maxine's gorgeous
Yes.
in comparison.
But they, a good sled dog is worth quite a few $1,000s.
I'll be darned. Well,
Particularly a lead dog. The lead dog are expensive ones.
What makes a good lead dog? That's what I don't.
A lead dog is one who is very independent, who wants to be in charge, wants to be out there telling everybody else what to do.
I saw a cartoon one time, and it had a whole string of sled dogs, and it said, if you really want to see the world, you need to be the lead dog.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, we were talking a lot about the dogs, but let's talk about the mushers. What kind of people are these people?
They're really tough people.
I guess.
They're real tough. And basically there are three groups of mushers. Mm-hmm. There are the professional mushers, and that's all they do. They make their money. Jeff King is one of them. He's won Iditarod 4 times. Lance Mackey, when I went there 4th time, wanted to be one of those, so he was in the wannabe class. And
did he have a day job?
Yeah.
But the other man does not.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So Lance wanted to be a musher, so he was a wannabe. So he's in those who never could quite get up there well enough to get enough sponsors to make it a profitable venture for them. And then you have those who just want to go. They're at the end of the pack. They may be someone who works for a musher, and a lot of these teams have a second team. So they have their running team, their winning team, and then they have a team that's of junior dogs, young dogs. They just want to show them the ropes. They don't want to push them hard. They're just out there having a good time. And so they plan on doing 13 or 14 days. They don't plan on doing 10 days.
So to win the race is not necessarily the object.
For a lot of the people, it's not the object. Probably for the top 30, half of the people would have aspirations of winning. Mm-hmm. The other half, all they want to do is finish. That's all.
And they do a lot of that running at night, that finishing.
Oh, yeah.
If the snow's soft, then it's harder to...
Snow soft, they don't want to run during the day. If it gets above 0, you definitely don't want to run above that. You'll get heat stroke.
Speaking of heat stroke, I think we ought to show them the boots that you have to wear because they look, you know what they look like, I've decided, is something from a monster movie. And those are big, heavy numbers there.
Actually, they aren't that heavy, but they're very, very warm. They have a liner in here. Mm-hmm. And then this goes inside, and it all works out very well.
Do you ever freeze anything? No?
No, I have kept very warm in these.
Oh, boy, I don't know.
And when I was getting ready to go and we were out looking for clothing for me the first time, and I told my wife, my feet were warm, I will be okay, but if they're cold, I will not make it.
You can't make it.
And I'm really glad with the selection. It's been very good.
Really? And you bought those here?
I bought those here at Cabela's.
Yeah. But, you know, you have to be on top of the game because in one 24-hour period, you made note of the fact that you could examine 500 dogs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you have to be careful because no abuse. Those dogs have to be well taken care of.
Oh, yes.
And so I just think if you have warm clothes, then your brains work better.
You're not worried about other things happening.
No.
Yeah.
No. You going to go again?
Yes.
Well, I think it's wonderful. And I think that, I don't know, one of the reasons that it's so wonderful is that it broadens your horizons as well as doing good for the dogs. And I know that you know, it's one thing to say I'm a veterinarian, but you have always been so interested in the clients that you have in your practice and in the dogs. I know you have some that need a home and all that kind of thing. So I have to say that, and Vern has been all over the world doing good, whether it be looking after the Iditarod dogs or vaccinating cattle or controlling rat problems or increasing dairy production, and he's done it in Africa and Egypt and El Salvador and Bolivia. And Vern, you have enriched not only your life, but the lives of the many animals to which you have dedicated your life and your career.
Thank you, Mary.
As I say, thank you to Vern Otte, veterinarian, but also a really good man. Thank you for being our neighbor. Thank you for joining us. It's our community, you know. I'll see you soon again.